Welcome back for another deep dive. And today we're diving headfirst into a collection of declassified files from the JFK Assassination Records Act of 1992.
Oh, yeah.
Our wonderful listener has sent these in, and I gotta say, it's a really, really interesting set of documents.
It is.
We've got,
A lot of,
like a memo focusing on a certain Antonio Rodriguez,
Yeah.
Echazabal.
Echazabal.
But also we have multiple lists of code names and aliases.
Right. Which
Yeah.
you would expect to see,
Exactly.
in the world.
Espionage.
Yeah.
We want to try to extract
Yeah.
as much information as we can
Exactly.
from these and just see what kind of connections.
Yeah.
Or even just like little nuggets of information we can find.
Yeah, we're looking at a memo and then several lists that are basically collections of code names,
Yes.
possible real names,
Yeah.
contact details even,
Yeah.
and organizational affiliations. So, these are raw pieces of intelligence
Yeah.
that offer
Just these glimpses.
little peeks
Yeah. Into this big
Puzzles of history.
historical puzzle. Yeah.
So let's just jump right in, I guess. We
Okay.
have this memo. It's dated February 5th, 1962.
Okay.
And it's from M. Davon Hill. And going to the chief.
Really?
And it's all about this guy, Antonio Rodriguez Echazabal.
Okay.
What jumps out at you about this guy?
So I think what's interesting is from an intelligence perspective, we get this detailed personal background on him right away.
Yeah.
It says that he was born in Cuba in 1913,
Uh-huh.
had an education,
Yeah.
but was not associated with religious groups or the Masons.
Okay, interesting.
And then we also get information about his family.
Yeah.
His wife, Edith Jones, who was also Cuban,
Mhm.
but her mother was Haitian.
Oh, wow.
So she had that heritage on her mother's side, and they had 3 children.
Okay.
And then it focuses on one son in particular, Antonio Rodriguez Jones,
Okay.
born in 1943, who was studying at that time in Washington, D.C.
Interesting.
And he was flagged as having some pretty notable views.
Okay, so let's jump into that a little bit.
Sure.
So the memo states that this son, Antonio Rodriguez Jones, had anti-U.S. sentiments.
Yeah.
And he wanted his father to seek education for him in Cuba or another, quote, socialist country.
Right.
So how significant is that in the bigger picture?
I think that's a key piece of the puzzle,
Yeah.
because it suggests potential ideological leanings
Yeah.
within the family. And, this is the height of the Cold War.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So such a stated preference could certainly draw attention.
Absolutely.
From intelligence agencies.
Yeah.
And it makes his father's later actions all the more intriguing.
It does, yeah.
Yeah.
So the memo does go into Rodriguez Acasabal's professional life, starting with his work in land reform in Havana.
Right.
And then he left for Germany late in 1961.
Yeah.
But his history before that,
Yeah.
especially his time in Haiti,
Yeah.
seems quite eventful.
It does, yeah. He
Yeah.
spent a significant amount of time in Haiti. About 18 years he lived there.
Wow.
And he actually became a Haitian citizen
Interesting.
and even owned a market there
Oh, wow.
called El Oso Blanco in Port-au-Prince.
Wow.
And then following the fall of Batista in Cuba,
Yeah.
he became the Cuban embassy counselor in Haiti
Uh-huh.
in early 1959 and later served as ambassador.
Wow. So
Yeah.
he was really kind of entrenched in Haitian politics.
So.
It seems so.
Yeah.
Yeah. His diplomatic role in Haiti doesn't seem to have been very smooth.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah.
He reportedly maintained connections with individuals who opposed President Duvalier.
Okay.
And in late July 1959, when a small group of Cubans invaded Haiti,
Yeah.
the Haitian government publicly accused Rodriguez of being involved.
Wow. So not only political turmoil, but the memo suggests his personal safety was also at risk.
Right. So the memo mentions 2 attempts
Wow.
on his life while he was in Haiti.
Oh, my gosh.
He suspected the Trujillo regime in the Dominican Republic
Uh-huh.
and indirectly the Haitian government.
Wow. So
Yeah.
really a volatile environment?
Very volatile.
Okay. So from Haiti, he goes on to serve as the Cuban ambassador to
Yeah.
Guatemala and then Pakistan.
Right.
What can you tell us about those postings?
Okay, so in Guatemala,
Uh-huh.
which he started in November of 1959,
Okay.
the memo notes his association with pro-communist groups,
Uh-huh.
which ultimately led to the Guatemalan government requesting his departure.
Oh, wow.
And then in November of 1960, he became ambassador to Karachi, Pakistan.
Okay.
His wife accompanied him there.
Uh-huh.
And he developed a close relationship with officials from the Belgian embassy,
Yeah.
which had represented Cuban interests there before.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
But interestingly, by 1961, his social interactions were almost exclusively with diplomats from Soviet, Eastern European satellite, and Chinese communist nations.
Wow. So that really points towards a strong alignment
It really does.
with the communist bloc.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And then here comes the pivotal point. His defection.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what can you tell us about that?
So in late 1961, the memo states he decided to defect,
Okay.
claiming he was finished with politics
Wow.
and intended to pursue agriculture
Okay.
in the Dominican Republic or another South American country.
Uh-huh.
He departed Karachi by air for Germany
Uh-huh.
in early January 1962,
Okay.
an event that apparently received little press coverage in Pakistan.
Wow. Interesting. The memo also touches on the reasons behind his defection.
Right.
Or more accurately, the lack of definitive reasons.
Yeah, insufficient information to determine his true motivation.
Yeah.
But the denial of a visa is mentioned.
Mhm.
Could there be more to that?
Potentially, yeah.
Right. What do you think?
Well, the memo states that there was insufficient information
Yeah.
to determine Rodriguez's disaffection with the Castro regime.
But the denial of a visa after he'd apparently made the decision to resign could be a significant factor.
Absolutely, yeah.
Was it a sign that the regime no longer trusted him,
Yeah.
perhaps anticipating his defection,
Yeah.
or were there other underlying issues? The memo doesn't give us a clear answer,
No, it doesn't.
leaving a lot of room for speculation.
Absolutely. So he leaves Pakistan, goes to Germany.
Yeah.
Where does he end up next?
Okay, so he arrived in France
Wow.
in January of 1962
Uh-huh.
and was granted permission to travel and reside in Martinique.
Okay.
He left France on January 31st, 1962, heading for Martinique.
Okay.
And the memo concludes,
Yeah.
referencing another document, DIR 59176,
Okay.
dated February 1st, 1962,
Uh-huh.
which was related to his travel arrangements to someone named Grimm,
Okay.
with copies of a report provided to Grimm 11 on February 6th.
Oh.
And the final sentence requests the debriefing
Yeah.
of Rodriguez.
So that tells me that whoever Grimm is, they had a vested interest
Yeah.
in gathering intelligence
It seems.
from Rodriguez Echazabal.
Yeah,
So, yeah, that's really interesting.
it is.
So now let's move on to these lists of code names and aliases.
Sure.
What kind of insights can we glean from these?
I think these lists offer
Yeah.
kind of a fascinating glimpse into
Yeah.
the operational world of intelligence.
Yeah.
We see all these code names
Yeah.
paired with what are believed to be their corresponding true names, and sometimes even additional details like
Yeah.
addresses,
Yes.
phone numbers,
Right.
and affiliations with organizations.
Yeah, like the depth of Navy,
Yeah, the depth of Navy,
Office of Security,
Office of Security,
CIA,
CIA, FBI.
Yeah.
You know, it suggests this widespread network
Yeah.
of individuals involved in various capacities.
Oh, for instance, we have KTWN
Mhm.
and YRUK listed with no further identifying information.
Yeah, those standalone code names
Yeah.
don't tell us much in isolation, but they likely represent individuals
Yes.
who were known within a specific operational context,
Huh?
but without more information,
Yeah.
their roles and their significance remain unclear to us now.
Yeah.
However, their presence on the list
Yeah.
indicates the use of this coded system to protect identities and operational security.
Exactly. Then we have entries where a code name is linked to a location,
Uh-huh.
such as ZR Metal. Associated with Washington, D.C.
Okay.
What does that tell you?
Well, that's a really
Yeah.
valuable piece of information.
Yeah.
It gives us a potential geographical area of operation
Yeah.
for ZR Metal.
Yep.
This kind of detail could be crucial
Yeah.
in piecing together the activities and networks of these individuals.
Exactly. And then we have both a code name and a presumed true name listed together.
Okay.
Like FNARDZ
Mhm.
with a note, need more info.
Right.
So what does that tell us about the intelligence gathering process?
I think the need more info note is
Yeah.
really interesting
Yeah.
because it indicates an active area of investigation or a gap in their knowledge about the individual behind that code name. And
Yeah.
it highlights,
Yeah.
the ongoing and often incomplete nature of intelligence gathering.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we see Jack Malone listed as an asset deceased,
Oh.
with Michael Malone noted as the same as 6.
Okay.
What kind of connection might that imply?
So the notation Same as 6.
Yeah.
Likely refers to another entry
Yeah.
with further details about Michael Malone. And the fact that Jack Malone is listed as a deceased asset
Yeah.
suggests someone who is actively working with an intelligence agency.
Right.
The connection to Michael Malone could indicate a relative,
Yeah.
another alias used by the same person,
Uh-huh.
or perhaps someone who took over his responsibilities.
Yeah. Okay. And then we have David Atlee Phillips. And the notation says all aliases and pseudos.
Right.
Yeah. So that seems like
Someone really... Yeah. The explicit mention of multiple aliases and pseudonyms really suggests someone involved in very sensitive or high-risk operations where anonymity was absolutely paramount.
Yeah.
This level of disguise, was a hallmark of
Yeah.
certain types of intelligence work.
Yeah. And then we see notes like no record, retired, deceased.
Right.
What significance do those have for you?
I think they're crucial for understanding how dynamic these records were. They weren't static lists, but were continuously updated to reflect changes in an individual's status or their relationship with the agency. No record could imply someone never fully identified or whose records were expunged. Retired and deceased indicate a change in operational status.
Makes sense, yeah. Okay, and then we see instances where the same true name appears under different pseudonyms. For example, we have Parlett Wallace A., followed by Gerard Droller, true name, retired. Orison Samuel G., Orison, pseudo Stanley Moose, true name. Olean Woodrow C., Olean pseudo. James, a Knoll, true name, retired. Why so many pseudonyms?
Well, the use of multiple pseudonyms could serve a number of purposes. It could be for operational security, allowing an individual to engage in different activities or work with different groups without compromising their true identity.
Makes sense.
It could also relate to different phases of their career or their work with different parts of the intelligence apparatus.
Okay. And then we see Roselli, pseudo, with the note. This, no doubt, is the mafia-type Johnny Roselli.
Right. That's a very direct
it's a
and potentially significant link.
Very explicit.
Yeah.
And then there's other entries with organizational links. Like CoTube, listed as foreign intelligence staff and BG actress associated with the IO division.
Yeah, so those organizational links provide valuable context. Foreign intelligence staff would likely be involved in intelligence gathering activities outside the U.S. The IO division probably stands for Intelligence Operations Division, suggesting involvement in more covert or clandestine activities. The BG actress could indicate the use of individuals from various professions for intelligence purposes.
Absolutely. And then we have the entry, Ciroc 1. With the note check with Venezuela desk. CI digraph was assigned to that desk. What's a digraph?
So in this context, a digraph is a two-letter code. CI in this case, used internally by the agency to categorize or assign responsibility for certain operations or geographical areas, in this case, Venezuela. So the note suggests that Ciroc 1 was likely associated with activities or individuals linked to the Venezuela desk within the agency.
Woven these lists contain so much information.
Right. It underscores how complex the intelligence work was.
During this era.
It really does. Okay, so to recap, we delved into the life and eventual defection of Antonio Rodriguez Echazabal, Cuban diplomat, with a really fascinating and turbulent career. And we navigated through lists of code names and aliases, uncovering potential true identities, organizational affiliations, and even geographical links. And it's just a really fascinating glimpse into
they often
the world of intelligence operations.
Raise more questions than they answer.
They do. So listener...
they serve as an invitation for you for ongoing research and critical analysis of these historical events. So what stood out to you the most?
I think for me, it's just the human element. You know, like this very detailed account of Rodriguez Echazabal's life, his shifting political landscape, his decision to defect. It just is painting such a vivid picture of the personal choices made against the backdrop of global tensions. And then also the codename lists. You know, while they seem abstract,
they represent real people.
Real people,
operating in the shadows.
That's a powerful observation.
And
it leads to kind of a final thought I want to leave you with. Given the level of detail we see in these declassified files and the notations that things are missing or information's incomplete, what about all of the intelligence that remains classified
That's up to
this day?
Yeah.
What potential impact could further releases have?
That's a huge question.
On our understanding of the past and what does the very existence of these long-held secrets tell us about their role in shaping historical narratives?
Yeah, that's so interesting. Well, thank you for joining me on this deep dive.
Thanks for having me.
Into these fascinating documents, we encourage you to continue exploring these topics and until next time, keep those questions coming.